It's been a hell of a day for Disney, Marvel Studios, and Lucasfilm. We've got some weird stuff going on. Now, some of it can be easily explained. Some of it is a little bit more head-scratching. This is not going to be a terribly long video, folks. This is just a primer because I'm going to have a special guest joining me late tonight to cover this information in more depth. We're going to talk about that. Stay tuned real quick. Let me clue you in. Here we go. Online. All right, welcome back, folks. YouTube views lately on my last few videos have been extraordinarily out of character. They've been very low. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully you guys are getting these notifications. But it brings me to the point of thank you for subscribing. If you're not subscribed, make sure you are. Make sure you have indeed hit that notification bell, hit that like button. Share this sucker out on Twitter and Facebook and whatever other social medias that you enjoy. Actually set up a Patreon account the other night, and my first Patreon subscriber is the very guest that I'm going to have on late tonight for a recorded session, which will be released tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, around 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time in the U.S., so stay tuned for that. And my first Patreon sub was to my good buddy, Cameron Pasha, who will be joining me in a few hours once he wraps up this evening with the lovely ladies over at Toxic Femmes on Midnight's Edge. He'll be joining me after the show, and we will be talking about this because he and I had some discussions on these matters not that long ago on Doomcock's Sunday show, The Pop Culture Breakdown, and at one point, I believe, also on Midnight's Edge, if I'm not mistaken, talking about Marvel releases, and particularly Indy 5. And this is some very peculiar news today, at least one part of it. Now, what isn't peculiar about it is the decision to push the Marvel movies back one slot. If you're not aware, there is a bit of an issue going on right now in Hollywood, as an understatement to say the least, between IATSE and Hollywood producing studios. So what this basically means is the guys who make the movies work, the guys who run the production sets, the guys and girls, I should say, who run these production sets. These are the people who build the sets, who do the lighting, who are the grips, who build the camera systems, who lay the tracks and the rails for the camera systems, who set up all of the equipment that's involved for, say, a bodysuit gimbal for a camera. All this kind of stuff. All the people who do this, that is IATSE. That is the union out there for all of these folks. And if you haven't been following this news, they have been talking about striking for some time over some very onerous working conditions. I have to say, the more I read about this, the more I learned, the more I feel for these guys and girls. They really are getting run through the ringer. The work hours that they have are extremely onerous. The pay is really not that good. Hasn't been updated in some time. And these are the people that make these movies work. They are the quote-unquote below-the-line people that you probably never heard of or don't think about when you watch a movie. But I can promise you, if you watch a movie, you're watching it because they were there. You know, all the actors and directors in the world cannot make a movie happen. All the executive producers in the world and all the money in the world cannot make a movie happen if you do not have these people on there to actually make the clock run. You know, it's one thing to know what time it is, but a lot of people don't ever stop to think about how that clock works. So this is one of those bits right here. So let's get into this. Marvel Studios announced today that their entire slate so far that they have mapped out for the next several years is basically being pushed one slot, meaning 2 to 3 months. You know, Marvel reserves all of these slots in theatrical releases years in advance, as many movie studios will. So they pushed everything back one slot, pretty much in anticipation that there is going to be some sort of strike coming, even though people thought they went to bed Friday and Saturday night thinking the strike would be averted, a deal had been reached, and we wake up Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, and find out that's not really the case because many of the key provisions that were being asked for, like longer turnaround times, longer weekends, longer time to rest and recoup, especially when some of these guys and girls have to drive 1, 2, 3 hours from wherever they're staying to where the set and their shooting is, and they only have 10 hours of downtime, meaning they might be spending 4 to 6 of those hours in a car and only 4 hours of sleep in between when they have to go back the next day. It's very tough. And they didn't really get the pay increases they were looking for. So the chances are that a strike is going to happen, and studios like Disney are kind of jumping out in front of this and saying, we're going to push everything back because we can see this is going to be an issue, and we don't want to, basically get into any more hot water at this point than we need to. What is very unusual, and this is what Cameron and I will be talking about that you'll see tomorrow morning, is right here is the Indiana Jones 5 issue. The Indiana Jones 5 issue, and this is a very, very, very odd bit. This is being delayed an entire year. Not 2 months, not 3 months, not pushing back one natural slot. They are delaying the release of Indy 5 an entire year until late June of 2023, almost July, which is where it was supposed to be in 2022. So there's more to this story going on because we haven't seen other studios kind of announcing this thing, and I find it interesting that this was just kind of slipped in and buried in amongst the Marvel news. Like, this is no big deal, too. Well, I think there's more going on to it, and Cameron Pasha and I are going to have a conversation on this. Because one of the things that struck me when I saw this today was a conversation Cameron and I had a few weeks ago about the ire over some of the leaks from our good friend, Overlord DVD, Dictor Van Doomcock here on YouTube, talking about some of the details that he was hearing on the Indy 5 plot and some of the story elements. And none of it sounded all that great. And as that made it out in the last few days, we have had more confirmation that those initial leaks were indeed, at least relatively speaking, pretty much on the money. And that has gotten fans upset. And I'm wondering if this might not have something to do with it. As we have said before, Bob Chapek is not a stupid man. He is not going to pull the plug and move on this without some good reason. And maybe, just maybe, he can see some writing on the wall. Cameron and I are going to be discussing this later tonight. You'll see it tomorrow morning. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you've got that notification bell hit. Make sure you like this video and share this sucker out tonight. Get everybody in here for tomorrow morning when we put it out. Leave a comment, too. Want to hear your thoughts on this. Let's get some feedback before Cameron and I talk. And until next time, take care.